Global News and Zoom on Nigeria. Thanks for tuning. On the news, U.S. Enman T0 to appear before court over leaked files. Japan, India, France launch mutual ground for Sri Lanka creditors. Trump questioned for hours in New York fraud lawsuit. Australia shrouded by tropical cyclone Ilsa. And North Korea launched first ever ICBM Hwasong 18. On Friday, a 21-year-old U.S. airman will appear in court in connection with a leak of highly classified military documents about the Ukraine war and other national security issues. Jack T0 on Thursday was arrested by the FBI at his family home in Dayton, rural Massachusetts. He has been identified as the leader of an online chat group where the documents first emerged. He is charged with the unauthorized removal and transmission of classified information. He will appear in court in Boston, Massachusetts later on Friday. Dozens of leaked documents reveal U.S. assessments of the war in Ukraine, as well as sensitive secrets about American allies, embarrassing Washington and raising fresh questions over the security of classified information. T0 worked as an IT specialist in the intelligence wing of the Massachusetts National Guard, based at Otis Air National Guard Base in Western Cape Cod. The National Guard is a reservist wing of the U.S. Air Force. They are not employed full-time in the military but can be deployed when needed. T0's official title is Cyber Transport System Journeyman, and he holds the rank of Airman First Class, a relatively junior position. It is not clear what level of security clearance he had, but according to the Air Force website, employment in the role requires a single scope background investigation, SSBI. The clearance is reportedly required for access to top secret information. It was not until intelligence material was posted outside the chat room group that Pentagon officials became aware of the link, prompting a massive search for the culprit. Aside from the age of the suspect, the motive is also thought to be unusual. While T0 is said to have harbored skepticism of government, friends, he said, was neither a whistleblower nor a foreign agent. The Pentagon says it will re-examine how classified information is distributed, but the spokesman said it was the nature of the U.S. military to entrust young service members with high levels of responsibility. Japan, India and France have announced a mutual platform to discuss among bilateral creditors to coordinate the restructuring of Sri Lanka's debt, a move they hope will serve as a model for solving the debt woes of middle-income economies. However, it remains uncertain whether Sri Lanka's biggest bilateral creditor, China, will join the initiative launched by Japan, this year's G7 chair, with the aim of kicking off a series of meetings among Sri Lanka's creditors. To be able to launch this negotiation process, gathering such a broad-based group of creditors is a historical outcome, Japanese Finance Minister Shunichi Suzuki told a briefing on Thursday. This committee is open to all creditors, he said, voicing hope China would join in the effort. Emmanuel Moulin, French Director General of the Treasury, told the briefing the group was ready to hold the first round of talks as soon as possible. Sri Lanka's central bank governor said, according to reports earlier, that this week that having a single platform for talks will become a welcome move that will make it easier to discuss and share information. Japan's top currency diplomat Masato Kanda said the group has sent an invitation to all of Sri Lanka's bilateral creditors, including China, and hopes to hold the first round of talks at the earliest date possible. The beginning of a coordinated effort to address Sri Lanka's distress means we have a critical policy adjustment with the International Monetary Fund (IMF), said Sri Lanka's President Ranil Wickremesinghe, who is also the finance minister, via video conference. The island nation of 22 million people last month secured a $2.9 billion program from the IMF to tackle its huge debt burden. But the middle-income economy could not apply for relief under the G20's Common Framework for Debt Treatment, which targets only low-income countries. That has put the onus on big economies to come up with an alternative scheme, leading to the creation of the new platform. Sri Lanka owes $7.1 billion to bilateral creditors, according to official data from its government, with $3 billion owed to China, followed by $2.4 billion to the Paris Club and $1.6 billion to India. The government also needs to renegotiate more than $12 billion of debt in Eurobonds with overseas private creditors and $2.7 billion on other commercial loans. Sri Lanka kicked off talks to rework part of its domestic debt this month and aims to finalize the deal by May. Now, ex-United States President Donald Trump spent closely 7 hours answering questions in a New York lawsuit that accuses him and 3 of his children of fraud, according to his lawyer. Trump's deposition on Thursday came a week after the former president's historic indictment in an unrelated criminal case regarding hush payments to adult actress Stormy Daniels. Letitia James, New York Attorney General, has accused the former president, Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, and Ivanka Trump of lying to tax authorities, lenders, and insurers of years as part of incredible fraud at the Trump Organization. Trump arrived at James' office before 10 o'clock a.m., 14 hours GMT, for the deposition, which was conducted in private, and returned to Trump Tower, his New York residence and headquarters of the Trump Organization, in little after 6:30 p.m. He earlier attended James' office in August, during which he refused to answer most questions and invoked his right to silence several hundred times. Christopher Kesey, a lawyer for Trump's businesses, said the ex-president spent nearly 7 hours answering questions about his extraordinary business success and that everyone would scoff at the notion any fraud took place. One, the facts are out in the open. Ahead of his testimony, Trump, who is facing a slew of civil and criminal investigations, described the lawsuit as another unjust and ridiculous persecution. James' lawsuit alleges that the Trump family routinely misstated the value of the Trump Organization's properties for their own enrichment. Trump last week pleaded not guilty to 34 felony charges related to hush money payments made during his successful run for president in 2016. Republicans have condemned the hush money case as a politically motivated effort by Manhattan's District Attorney Alvin Bragg, a Democrat, to derail Trump's candidacy for the 2024 presidential election. Trump is also under investigation over his bid to overturn the results of the 2020 election, the alleged mishandling of classified documents, and his involvement in the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol. He is also facing a civil lawsuit filed by Eugene Carroll, a former magazine columnist who has accused Trump of defamation and sexual assault. An extreme tropical cyclone has crashed into northwestern Australia with the strongest winds the country has ever recorded, but officials said the region's towns and cities appear to have escaped the worst of the storm. Tropical cyclone Ilsa was upgraded to a Category 5 storm, the strongest on the scale, shortly after it made landfall to close to the sparsely populated town of Pardo and about 19 hours drive northeast of Perth. The owners of the Pardo Roadhouse, a well-known petrol station and caravan park in the path of the storm, said on Facebook it had suffered great damage. Footages showed the roof torn away and the building open to the sky with goods flung from the shelves. The floor was covered with debris. Authorities said big population centers appeared to have escaped the brunt of the cyclone, but there were unconfirmed reports of extensive damage in some remote areas. Emergency Services spokesperson Peter Stoughton told the National said, according to report, he said an aerial survey will be carried out as soon as it was safe. A Bureau of Meteorology said the cyclone has set a preliminary Australian record for the strongest sustained wind speeds over a 10-minute period, averaging 218 kilometers per hour, 135 mph, with gusts of 288 kilometers per hour. The earlier recorded was 194 kilometers per hour, which was set in 2007 by Cyclone George. Australian researchers have repeatedly warned that climate change amplifies the risk of natural disasters such as bushfires, floods, and cyclones. The Department of Fire and Emergency Services issued a new series of red alerts as the storm moved inland, ordering people to stay indoors until given the all clear. There is a threat to lives and homes, the department said. Tropical storms typically run out of steam once they reach land, but Ilsa is forecast to maintain an unusual intensity as it moves across the desert interior in the coming days, with a risk of flash floods and destructive winds. The northwest coast of Western Australia is the most cyclone-prone region in the country, according to the Bureau of Meteorology. It also has the highest incidence of cyclones in the southern hemisphere. The region is home to some of Australia's largest mining operations and holds significant deposits of iron ore, copper and gold. Port Hedland, the world's largest iron ore export hub, also appeared to have escaped the worst of the storm. North Korea has announced the successful test of its first solid-fuel intercontinental ballistic missile ICBM, a major goal of leader Kim Jong-un's plan to develop more advanced and powerful weaponry. The test was detected on Thursday by South Korea and Japan, which briefly ordered residents on the northern island of Hokkaido to evacuate. North Korea confirmed the launch of the missile dubbed the Hwasong-18 on Friday morning, reports said. The event was supervised by Kim, who was accompanied by his wife, young daughter, and powerful sister, Kim Yo-jong. According to reports, a new type of intercontinental ballistic missile was test-fired on Thursday as the key means of strategic military force, describing the test as a miraculous success. Kim was cited as saying the Hwasong-18 will rapidly advance North Korea's nuclear response posture and further support an aggressive military strategy that promised to maintain nuke for nuke and an all-out confrontation for an all-out confrontation against its rivals. The Hwasong-18 weapon system, to be run by the country's strategic forces, will play its mission and role to defend North Korea, deter invasions and preserve the country's safety as its most powerful method, according to reports. Solid fuel missiles are safer to use, easier to maneuver and faster to deploy than liquid-propelled variants, which need to be loaded at the launch sites and were a key part of a 5-year arms development plan Kim unveiled in 2021. In spite of a United Nations ban on ballistic missile testing, North Korea has carried out numerous launches in recent years as it looks to advance its military prowess. In Africa, Mali Islamic State group have taken Tidemene. Jihadists affiliated to Islamic State group have taken Tidemene in Mali, further isolating the regional capital, Menaka. This is according to officials and witnesses who spoke on Wednesday. Tidemene's fall follows months of fighting by Islamic State in the Greater Sahara to seize the northeastern village of a few thousand inhabitants, some 75 kilometers, 47 miles north of Menaka. All the region's main administrative subdivisions are now under the group's control. The village was captured on Monday night. The major ISGS offensive has since early 2022 been underway in the region of Menaka and that of Gao for the west. The regions have seen intense battles between ISGS fighters and the Al-Qaeda-linked group to support Islam and Muslims, JNIM, as well as with further touring independence fighters who signed a peace deal in 2015 and loyalists who once fought the independence fighters. Experts believe the jihadists stepped into a vacuum left when French forces departed last year. Hundreds of civilians have been killed in the violence and communities have been displaced en masse. Some have fled across the border to Niger. The United Nations and human rights organizations say jihadists have carried out punitive attacks against communities they accuse of helping the state or refusing to join their ranks. One Tidemene refugee on Menaka said, given the town is a former JNIM stronghold, ISGS fighters are now seeking out civilians who own weapons or walkie-talkies. The Malian army controls Menaka and is ensuring the protection of civilians. An army said, according to report, when asked about the capture of Tidemene, armed groups and the MINUSMA military personnel are also present. I'll take a short break, and when I come back, I'll bring you stories from Nigeria. Stay with us. Welcome back. On Nigerian scenes, Tinubu faulted PDP's petition filed against him. Yesterday, President-elect Bola Tinubu Ahmed told the presidential candidates of People Democratic Party (PDP), Atiku Abubakar and his party that their petition against his victory at the February 25th presidential election constituted a gross abuse of the judicial process. Tinubu, in a preliminary objection he filed against Atiku and PDP's petition dated March 21st, stated that it was wrong for the petitioners to approach the tribunal with the same issues they had earlier filed at the Supreme Court. result. Tinubu dismissed Atiku as a serial loser, saying he has been losing presidential polls since 1993. The president-elect insisted that he clearly won majority of votes cast at the presidential election and was rightly declared winner by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. He observed that the emergence of Atiku as the presidential candidate of PDP balkanized the main opposition party and affected the party's fortunes at the election. But Special Assistant on Public Communication to Atiku, Mr. Frank Shwaibu, lambasted Tinubu for trying to present the $460,000 for future case as one connected to tax evasion and not drugs charges, saying the former Lagos State Governor could not outrun his past. In the petition filed on his behalf by his lawyer, Chief Wole Olanipekun San, the respondent observed that 6 states comprising Adamawa, Akwa Ibom, Bayelsa, Delta, Edo, and Sokoto, which were under the control of PDP, had approached the Supreme Court to nullify the outcome of the presidential election. In their originating summons dated February 28, 2023, the plaintiffs had predicated their request on the grounds that INEC did not comply with the regulations and guidelines for the conduct of the elections 2022. Specifically, they claim that the failure of INEC to use the bimodal voter accreditation system BVAS to electronically transmit results of elections substantially affected the credibility of the process. Outside the alleged incompetence of Atiku and PDP's petition, Tinubu stated that claims by the petitioners that Atiku's election was marred and invalidated by reasons of corrupt practices was incompetent and not cognizable under the Electoral Act. The ex-governor of Lagos State noted that contrary to the petition's claim of corrupt practices, Atiku and PDP's performance could be traced to internal wrangling in the party. APC-PDP battle for 2 governors, 94 legislative seats in rerun poll. Political parties, including the All Progressives Congress and the People's Democratic Party, are set to battle for 93 legislative seats in federal and state parliaments in Saturday's supplementary governorship elections will hold in Adamawa and Kebbi states on the same day. The Independent National Electoral Commission declared winners for 26 governorship, 104 senatorial, 329 House of Reps members, and 935 State Assembly seats in the general elections. INEC had also declared numerous polls inconclusive, while the electoral umpire cancelled several others due to irregularities and violence. The Commission has scheduled the supplementary elections for April 15th, where voters in 5 senatorial districts, 31 federal and 58 State Assembly constituencies will determine the winners. The senatorial elections will be held in Sokoto, Kebbi, and Zamfara. In Sokoto, supplementary elections are to be conducted in Sokoto North, Sokoto East, and Sokoto South districts. The elections will also be held in 389 polling units across all the 23 local government areas of the state. Altogether, about 227,743 eligible voters are expected to participate in the exercise. In Kebbi and Zamfara, the election will be conducted in 1 senatorial district each, Kebbi North and Zamfara Central. While the election will be held in 23 polling units in the Kebbi North Senatorial District, voters in 83 polling units will be voting in the Zamfara Central Senatorial election. They have 13,243 and 47,277 eligible voters, respectively. Meanwhile, the supplementary election for House of Representative members will be held in 31 constituencies in 15 states. They are Akwa Ibom, Anambra, Bayelsa, Edo, Imo, Kano, Kebbi, Kogi, Oyo, Rivers, Sokoto, Taraba, Zamfara, Jigawa, and Ebonyi states. For the state houses of assembly positions, elections will be held in 58 constituencies across 17 states. The polls will also take place in Adamawa State, where Governor Amadu Fintiri of the PDP was slogging out with the APC governorship candidate Aisha Binani in the rerun. The state coalition officer, Professor Mohammed Mele of the University of Maiduguri, had declared the election in the state inconclusive due to the margin of votes. Fintiri, who is seeking re-election, polled 421,524, while Ahmed scored 390,275. In Kebbi State, the APC and PDP are also ready to battle it out as they prepare for the governorship rerun. The Electoral Commission had declared the election inconclusive, citing the cancellation of results in different polling units across the registration areas in 20 of the 21 local government areas of the state. And finally, on the news, Central Bank of Nigeria to confiscate unclaimed funds in dormant accounts. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, is set to mop up funds in dormant accounts of customers in different banks across the country. This is coming after the Apex Bank issued fresh guidelines to commercial banks on the operations of dormant accounts, which has received no deposit nor withdrawal for upwards of 1 year. In a circular to all banks and other financial institutions, OFIs, the CBN, via its guidelines on the management of dormant accounts, unclaimed balances and other financial assets in banks, and OFI said it will open a pool account to warehouse all funds left in dormant savings, current and domiciliary accounts. The bank also said it will open and maintain an account reserved for the purpose of warehousing unclaimed balances in eligible accounts, adding that the account shall be called Unclaimed Balances Trust Fund UBTF Pool Account. Stating reasons behind the UBTF Pool Account, the CBN noted that dormant and unclaimed accounts are now targets of fraudsters. The CBN said it will invest the warehouse funds in T-bills and other interest-yielding ventures and return the profits to the owners of their accounts upon reactivation. Customers seeking to reactivate dormant accounts to provide evidence of account ownership, valid means of identification, evidence of present place of residence, and affidavit on the accuracy of the information to reactivate the account. The dormant accounts shall be reopened and the funds, including interest rates, should be returned to the owner upon request within 2 days, it said. The bank further directed commercial banks to continue paying interest into dormant accounts and maintain period communications with account owners via emails, SMS, and other necessary mediums. The Apex Bank thereafter said it will monitor and enforce compliance of financial institutions with the guidelines through off-site surveillance as well as on-site routine and target examinations. A contravention of any provision of the guidelines shall attract a penalty of no less than 2 million naira. Failure to comply with CBN's directive in respect of any infraction shall attract a further fine of 200,000 naira daily until the directive is complied with or as may be determined by the Central Bank of Nigeria, it said. A recap of major stories says U.S. Airman T0 to appear before court over leaked files. Japan, India, France launch mutual ground for Sri Lanka creditors. Trump questioned 4 hours in New York fraud lawsuit. Australia shrouded by tropical cyclone Ilsa, and North Korea launched first ever ICBM Hwasong 18. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thanks for watching.